I said that too. It wouldn't matter if this was only one time, but it's so many different reference tracks. So many, man. I just honestly, I just don't see how he can get around this one. Oh man, Drake get exposed for the third time. You know what I'm saying? So this is Torture Talk After Hours. If you like the content, just subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Here we go.
Now, when it comes to Drake, there is no more running for this guy, and he can no longer hide from the truth, because despite what OVO and his fans have tried to cover up, with the newest leaks that are trying to tell us that Drake has not even wrote his most personal lyrical songs like his timestamp records, despite what they want to tell you, there has never been more proof that Drake is really the biggest fraud in hip-hop and that everything he has ever stood for is a sheer and utter lie. Because from digging into the origin of these reference tracks to using Drake's own position and comments about how he used to be treated in the music industry against him, we can finally clearly see more than ever that Drake was never an artist and really was only ever a brand. And how before
I said this on my podcast. I said this. He is just a template. That's it. He's never really been an artist. I said the same thing. I think people be listening to the king, man. I said the same thing though. Y'all, a lot of y'all just obsessed with the idea. You know what I'm saying? That's it. But he is not a good artist. I'm telling you. It's just, he is a brand. He is a template. That's it. That's it.
we go any further into this and expose Drake and his credibility as an MC in a way that is gonna change your perception of his entire career, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And as this story is gonna change everything and Drake and his fans don't want people to know what's going on here, really, it has never been more important to leave that like. And so now with that said, when it comes to Drake, while when the 3 reference tracks leaked from a rapper who is known by names like Moolah and Chapo, Drake fans and others tried to write these off as being fake without any other thought about it, and some even believed it was so ridiculous that they tried making little jokes that classic Kendrick Lamar songs had reference tracks just like these. Well, now the time for joking is over for these guys, because both from diving into this further and seeing what other people have been able to dig up on this situation together, overall, after seeing the real story behind these reference tracks and seeing who they are actually coming from, it is going to be hard for anybody to sit down and say that these are not real. And again, if this was...
Yeah, this man is in trouble. He's in trouble. I'm telling y'all now. He's in trouble, man. He is in trouble, man. If you got your personal timestamp records, I'm talking about the records that you take closest to the heart, if they are getting leaked that someone else wrote these, we need to see Drake write a rap on the spot. We need to see him write a rap on the spot. We need to see you write a rap on the spot, homeboy. We need to.
Another artist, maybe it would be a different story. But especially as we know there has been such a long history of Drake doing these things already, as just to lay out the groundwork of Drake's ghostwriting, if we go through his catalog, from If You're Reading This It's Too Late to Scorpion to Her Loss to For All the Dogs, there has been reference tracks from various songs on all of those albums that have come out and that we have all heard. I mean, the guy's already got a horrible reputation for these things, and now adding to this all-time awful track record, with these 3 new reference tracks in question, which of course are from the songs 5 AM in Toronto, 4 PM in Calabasas, and Draft Day, which of course are all considered some of the most essential lyrical performances Drake has ever delivered. It's really looking terrible for Drake in terms of anybody believing that these songs came from the same.
If I find out that somebody wrote Aston Martin music, I'm never listening to Drake again. Never. If I find out that someone wrote Aston Martin music, yeah, it's over. It's over. I'm not trying to hear nothing.
pen that he wrote the hard part 6 with. And now the reason really why a lot of this is because one guy has connected the dots between the faint and mysterious tracks that nobody else knew what to do with, and who I am talking about is a guy who goes by the name of Real J Nolan. And right now, his findings about this entire situation are really starting to gain a lot of traction because he did some of the best work on finding some super small details that are just changing the perception of all of this. And with that said, make sure to support this guy and check him out everywhere because he is great at what he does. And so how he has...
Bruh. I told y'all, man. Didn't I tell y'all we all connected? Did I tell y'all? Yo, this is crazy. That's crazy. Now, Fantastic Hip Hop is shouting out Jay Nolan. Jay Nolan, he's that guy. And he can rap too, man. He can rap. He got some good music. Go check him out, man. He can rap. He's pretty good, man. Told y'all we was all connected, man. I told y'all.
Helped expose the mystery of all of this and make things for Drake look worse than ever is by showing everybody that the rapper who made these tracks isn't just a random guy who came from out of nowhere and is doing all of this for clout, but that he actually has a real history in the music industry. As first off, Moolah was a guy who used to be signed to Harvey Mason Jr., who currently is the head of the Recording Academy, so in of that self, that tells you a lot. And what it turns out to be is that this guy has worked in the industry for quite...
So, I think that's the guy he is the head of the Grammys, right? Oh man, don't tell me they throwing these reference tracks around at the Grammys. Not at the Grammys, but they communicating with each other. Oh, you want to play with us with Not Like Us? I mean, you want us to delete stuff? All right, we'll just put out your we'll put out the fact that you had ghostwriters on your best songs, homeboy. Yo, this is crazy. This is crazy. Crazy.
Some time. He's a professional writer who has worked with a ton of big artists, and so considering connections in the industry he has, what we can say at the very least is that most people would not make things like these up because they can ruin their entire reputation with what they are doing. But now beyond just that, and the finding about this rapper from Jay Nolan that tells us the most here, is that this MC who goes by names like Chapo and Moolah used to work very closely with none other than Boy Wonder. And of course, Boy Wonder is one of Drake's go-to producers, and Drake has been with him since the start of his career. And after there were real logs and timestamps of this guy and Boy Wonder's friendship, and even finding out that the two were working on an entire collab record at a time, altogether from having real connections in the industry with some of the biggest people in it, to literally working with someone who is as close to Drake as you could be. I mean, you tell me what's going on here, and overall, with there being a real story to back everything Moolah has told us up, these reference tracks do seem like they have every reason to be real, and how if Drake never had any other run-ins with being caught using ghostwriters before this, maybe this conversation would end here and we could give him a pass. But again, with us seeing this exact same story over and over again, this really seems to fall in line with situations that...
I said that too. It wouldn't matter if this was only one time, but it's so many different reference tracks. So many, man. I just don't see how he can get around this one. I mean, then again, Drake survived much more crazier things than this, to be honest with you.
Happened with people like Quentin Miller, and this guy really just seems to be another person who ended up being the pen for Drake. Now beyond all of this, which is already working against the biggest loser in hip-hop, just adding more validity to the idea that Drake has been deceiving us for so long, and that for a while, the way he has presented and even released music is not even to function as an artist, but just a brand. If we go back a little before the beef and the downfall of Drake, really, in the ladder of Drake's own label and what artists were most important, Drake was considered one of the top guys, and really the only person who was ever clearly in front of him was Taylor Swift. And understanding how much the industry used to push Drake at every chance they got, and even seeing how Drake's stardom was so big at a point that he really started to neglect rap when it...
This is crazy. That's crazy. All these playlists right here that Drake is on. All of these playlists. This is the reason why this guy is streamed so much. They was putting him on playlists that he had no. Bro, this is crazy, bro. This is crazy. The machine was working overtime for Drake. They was making money off him. They was pimping him out. Oh my God. This is crazy. Look at that. Look at that.
Came to the big records he was making and was trying to be as much of a pop star as he could have been. Just knowing how the biggest names in the industry like Taylor Swift have access to the top writing and talent teams because they are so important to the entirety of the music world, that the label gives them every single resource possible to make sure that their songs never fail. I mean, just off this premise alone, it doesn't seem that far off that Drake would have the same resources working for him, because even in rap itself, when we compare Drake to big commercial rappers who may have leaned more into the pop side of things like him, or just in general made highly chart-friendly music that appealed to wider audiences than traditional hip-hop did, with someone like Post Malone, for example, who in terms of making mega songs was right there with Drake, and we knew that he was using ghostwriters on a track like Rockstar. I mean, as these two around their peaks were pretty much the exact same archetype of rapper and were doing the same things in their own way for the industry, again, if we know someone like Post was using writers, it's not that far off to say.
Yeah, that's one person I don't like. I swear, Post Malone, he is such a grifter when it comes to music. I never seen nothing like it. He seemingly, I'm talking like, he went from hip hop right into country like it was nothing. Like it was nothing. And the thing is, like, I think like Post Malone is he's one of those guys that they welcomed him in with open arms in hip hop. I always was skeptical about that dude. Always was skeptical about him.
That Drake has been this whole time. And beyond all this stuff about the industry, as rap fans, I don't think we learn more about Drake's actual skill set as a writer than when he was in his beef with Kendrick. Because clearly you could see that between Push-Ups and Family Matters to then The Hard Part 6, Drake was just not able to deliver a performance that even made sense compared to his own lyrical standards. And again, when we question in the beef why Drake never released an actual track of just pure bars like a timestamp record, you have to wonder if it was because he couldn't get caught using ghostwriters in the most pivotal moment he was ever a part of. And especially with The Hard Part 6 and how that turned out. Seeing how quickly that record was put out, you have to question if it failed as much as it did, because he could not get others to write a better track for him. And for me, I do think this is the exact case of what happened here, because when you just track the history of Drake's pen, and just to add more reference, compare it to any other rapper who is known as a lyricist in hip-hop history. When we look at guys who are known for writing raps, whether it's Kendrick or Cole or other people like Tyler the Creator, Wale, or Big Sean, for example, who of course all came up with Drake right around the same time. When you look at all of these guys at the different points they have been in their careers, no matter where they have been at in terms of how popular they are or what they are doing, we don't see people's lyrical ability fall off to a point where it sounds like two completely different artists, unless...
That's a fact. That's 100% facts. Like, I know people's writing levels, and I understand how people write. And to me, Drake is called a good artist because he has so many people doing things for him. So since he has so many different artists doing so many different ghostwriters doing things for him, most people think that, that's what it is. But he's very good at taking people's sound, and he took Triple X sound. That was very sad, but he took Triple X sound, and I just think that when it comes to what Kendrick Lamar did to Drake, I just don't see Drake recovering from that. I don't. Like, I think every song now he comes out, people are gonna scrutinize it because it's not gonna be good. Because you see, he got exposed. So you can't really do no good music like that no more.
We are discussing people who have used writing teams and who are presenting to us fake versions of themselves when they are on tracks. And again, while we can dig deeper into the story of these reference tracks to figure out more of their origin, I don't even think that's necessary, because if you ask yourself as a hip-hop fan, When has another rapper had such a major discrepancy between songs and their ability as a lyricist? Again, unless it's other rappers who we know have used writing teams from the greats like Hove, Nas, M, and Wayne, but even with smaller rappers from all eras. In terms of their ability to write bars, nobody has ever been as inconsistent as Drake, who claims to be a real lyricist and who claims to do the most authentic things when they are writing their most important songs. And so with all of this, from the industry reasons, which also may explain why Drake's new album underperformed as much as it did because he just did not have access to the same resources he once did to make sure that his music would never fail even when it was pretty horrible, to the clear regression we can see in his pen as hip-hop fans, to the news story which is showing that the guy who leaked all these reference tracks used to be working as close as you could with Drake's go-to producer. Altogether, no matter what angle you want to look at this from, there has never been more that we can put together that is showing us that Drake doesn't just use ghostwriters for the big pop songs he makes, but also for the most important lyrical tracks as well. And with this, I mean, I'm not surprised because Drake has managed to let us down in every way possible already. But really, if there was any chance that down the line his old music would still be able to stand like it used to and that his legacy would be remembered for the good parts of what he did, I mean, if more stuff can come out to make this a bigger story, that is all gone. Because with Drake now doing everything he has done to go against hip-hop after this beef, and with his entire catalog now starting to seem fake, in terms of that each of his albums and even the ones that have been well liked are now presenting us a version of a guy who just was never real or who was never telling us what was really going on. And to quote Kendrick, a rapper with the ghostwriter, what happened? It's just disappointing to see, but at least now we know that as Drake is having the worst fall off from hip hop that we have ever seen in terms of somebody just moving down the all-time list as much as they have, then now at least we know that everything he ever did was a lie. And so now with all that
Yeah. It was all a lie. You know what I'm saying? It was all a lie. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows that Drake, right now, people want to push this joint. And I got an episode coming up about Maul saying that some sexy songs were used classic. Come on. You know what? I'm going on that. But thank you for joining me. See y'all. Peace. Bye.